So we are going to talk about the first. Well, we'll talk about Chain of Command through Tapestry, and but we will have to end it about 10 minutes early because I am doing a connected convention thing online Comic-Con vendors room type thing. I'll post a link up in the chat for everyone as well. Hey Todd. So yeah, it's been a week. How are you doing?
Fine. It's been a very busy week
Yes.
at work for me, as you know. So
Yeah.
lots going on.
Well, we managed to watch some Star Trek episodes in between all the craziness. So
Managed.
yes, indeed. So let's kick it off then with Chain of Command. I'm really excited to hear what you thought about this episode. So just a quick recap. This is the one where Jean-Luc Picard and Beverly Crusher and Worf go undercover to basically infiltrate a Cardassian bioweapon facility, and then Picard ends up captured. It's a two-parter. They try to mess with him and get him to break, essentially. So this is "there are four lights" thing. So, thanks, Josh. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
Man, this was really a lot. This was heavy, and when I was writing my notes this morning, I was like, wow, there was like literally not one laugh in the entire two-parter other than Worf being afraid of bats. Like that was it.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, heavy episode. And I mean, it just starts off with Picard being booted from command. Of course, quickly revealed that he's part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't quite tell even by the end of the two-parter if he was going to be reinstated, if that was the part of the whole thing or not. Right. I assume so, the way they were talking about it, but they had to make that pretense for the crew of some kind. But that was that whole thing, and like, what's the captain's name?
Jellicoe.
That took me a second to take him seriously because I was like, it just made me think of Jellicle Cats.
I know. Any musical theater fan is super hung up on that one, but
oh really? Okay.
Cheers.
It's not just me. Good.
No, not at all. Yes, but Captain Jellicoe. Weird name.
And yeah. And then it was not Cardassian. Yeah, Cardassian. Negotiating. And I love that moment when Deanna was like, no, he's not sure of himself. That was a really interesting moment, because one thing that I thought was interesting and I came away with for the first parter was yes, there's going to be differences in command style and leadership style on a starship, and it could be very conceivable that somebody like him would be the leader and the captain. They're not all going to be like Picard.
Yeah.
And it struck me as just recognizing that people's leadership styles are different. He would suck to work for as certain managers have those proclivities, and then certain ones are more like Picard. And I really think, Picard is a more effective leader just from a leadership standpoint, because this guy, it's clear really quickly that he's he maybe has low self-esteem or he's low self-confidence, and so he needs to create that distance, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah. And too, like, I think with those management styles, I think a lot of the time the people who are like that are not like, they're not even self-aware enough to know that it's their insecurities. It's just, this is what's got them to the top of the chain, and they're going to hold on to it.
Precisely.
To another. Hey, Aaron. No worries. It will be a Warfable. Of course it will.
Always a Warfable.
Not as much as last week, though. Fistful of Datas, I think, is probably the winner. But
we should have a Warfable count, like, going up, like.
How many moments? Yeah, exactly. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I find those episodes
But
really interesting, like where you do get to see the different types of captains and leadership, you know, that there are multiple ways to climb the chain. And I mean, we'll talk about this when we discuss Tapestry too, about like why Picard is the way it is, but I think what's really interesting too is, oh yay, I can't wait. Is how his relationship with Riker is, and just his lack of trust for a number one. And yeah, that was hard to watch.
Very hard to watch. Yeah, and Picard really going to bat for Riker as much as he can, but you can tell he's also kind of twisted in the chain of command. Like, he is no longer captain, so he has to be really careful how he tells this new captain to run the ship. Like, you can't do that, so he's tiptoeing and he's trying to do his best to stand by his crew. And those were really interesting moments. And then of course Riker, I loved Riker in this episode. He was again, chain of command, like trying to respect this change because you have to, you train to, but he has a really hard time with it.
Yeah. And I think you know, then transitioning into the second part where they need him to pilot into that nebula to lay the mines, and it becomes like it's not like they are gonna work together very well, but the fact that they acknowledge where he's like, no, I need you, you,
yeah,
and it's
I don't like you,
it's
but
not
I
an
need
order.
you.
Yeah,
Definitely,
it's interesting.
Very. And then there's the whole second part of the two-parter episode.
Yeah, which is acting in its finest form. But, whew, man. Oh, yeah.
That was tough. Is the video still frozen? Was it me or?
I think you froze for a second, but I think
probably.
Okay.
I know that happens sometimes. My internet's not great in my room. Sorry, everybody.
No worries.
Yeah, man.
So
full on.
Yeah, the torture scenes.
Yeah. There. Yeah. I'm just going to hop on my dock. They were tough to watch. They were extremely well acted by both parties. You know, I think that but it was very reminiscent of Ramsay and Theon to me in Game of Thrones.
That's fair.
Yeah, just in terms of the intensity and the psychological torture as well.
Yeah, which
comes to a really close head by the end. Another one of those like nick of time moments, because you could tell he was about to say that there were 5, and that was like he broke, and it worked.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too was the fact that he was able to resist the 4 or 5 lights thing because he still had hope that the Enterprise would rescue him. And then when they lie and they tell him the Enterprise is destroyed, then he's lost that hope. And then that's kind of that final break that was required. And for me, I mean, I think it's an excellent example of gaslighting in a very extreme form. I think for people who have experienced gaslighting before, and that sort of, and just sort of content warning-y about this, but I think where we are more used to seeing gaslighting in our everyday lives, if we've experienced it, has been like the type of thing where if he had left the room and they were insisting that there were 5 lights there, you know, and saying like, no, you saw 5 lights, and then the break is not as extreme, but I think it's easier to happen than this, which is like a full-on, no, you are not seeing in front of your eyes, as opposed to messing with your memory.
Right.
It's a little bit more extreme, but is sort of the case for Cardassians. And I found it interesting too that they, you know, the dynamic of, we didn't really we saw a lot of Jellicoe, but I still was kind of and maybe I missed something. I got up to get a drink or something when this happened. But I wonder how much of like him refusing to have Picard to admit the mission, like, and because, right, if he admitted that they were on this mission, then he would be a prisoner of war. If he didn't admit it, then they could treat him as a terrorist and kind of do whatever they wanted with him. And they didn't really go into that too much of, like, Jellicoe's internal, stress about that. I think he just was like, nope, orders they're not officially on a mission,
Yeah, you're right. That's a whole other little pressure cooker of whatever way we choose. It's like two bad choices, either we admit that they're on a mission and we're at war, or we don't and we lose somebody, like Picard. So just a moment of me going, yep, I'm really glad I don't have to make those kinds of decisions ever. Really, in my life.
And you can kind of just be like, well, and two, with this episode, for me, it's a good one, but like you said, there's not any laughs. It's a good one to watch if you want sort of that political intrigue action type thing and some excellent acting, but it's not one I necessarily go back to rewatch.
I can safely say I would not go back and watch these.
But now you know the there are four lights meme.
Well, actually, I've never seen that meme before. And when I saw that moment happen, I was like, why is there not a GIF of this? Why have I not seen this meme? Why? I know this has to be something.
Yeah.
So now I'm glad that there's something in the ether that I just haven't come across.
Yeah, it's just not as applicable, I think, as a lot of other, possibly a facepalm is. Yeah. But I did have a T-shirt, which I think I don't have anymore, but that I loved. That was essentially like a bunch of sci-fi characters all playing poker together, and Picard is laying down and he's shouting, "There are four aces!" So nice. it does come back.
The reference now, I will know. I'm glad about that.
Exactly. That's awesome. It's also, I think, story-wise, from Picard's story, it's very reminiscent of 1984.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of what you're seeing is not what you're seeing type thing. So, Any final thoughts on this one?
No, not really.
Other than, we got through it.
Yeah. Let's go on.
And just kind of the last note I had on that was the that you're starting to see more Cardassians. I think they're gonna be a thing.
Okay, I'm getting ready.
Yeah, that's okay because one of them
building up
we love, so it's fine.
Okay.
All right.
I'm glad for that.
There is a great palate cleanser after Chain of Command, though, which is Ship in a Bottle. This is the Moriarty escapes the holodeck episode.
Yeah.
But did he
so
really?
Good.
Oh, so good. Yeah, agreed, Todd. Seriously. I love so yeah, this is the one where Moriarty basically is like, hey, I know I've been asleep for 4 years. They're like, you shouldn't know that. And he's like, but I do, and I've figured out a way to get out, and walks out of the holodeck to everyone's brain exploding. And but then it was all a holodeck program, and then they holodeck program him into thinking that he's actually in reality. And super fun episode. So
much fun. Yeah, so many mind bending moments though. I was like, my notes just said like my brain. Ouch.
Seriously.
And it's funny. So one of the things I jotted down while I was watching this is when he leaves the holodeck and goes to 10 forward, it's just walking around in his 18th century clothing, and like the crew are just like, okay. And I was like, what kind of memos go around Starfleet crew? Like, by the way, there's somebody who was a holodeck character walking around outside, like, just for your information. And so they're like, okay. But then I realized I was writing that this morning. It's a moot point because they were all holodeck Starfleet.
Right. So good. They were all fake. They were all
holodeck on the holodeck. Like, wow.
It's amazing. It's so funny. It's so good. And I love that actor who plays Moriarty too. I think he was so good. And I love the plot of essentially like the reason he's capable of being this smart is because the request was to have him be programmed such that he could trick Data. So this is like full on artificial intelligence singularity type thing that's going down right now. And I love that.
So much fun.
Mm-hmm. And I love the final scene because even when we were watching it and Barclay's in the room and they're talking about like, what is reality? Like, maybe we're all trapped in a holodeck program. I'm like, why would you say that in front of Reginald Barclay? Like,
I know.
And then sure enough, they all leave the room and he's like, computer and program.
So sweet. But you know what? I might have tried the same thing.
I can't blame him.
What is going on?
Exactly.
Where am I? Who am I? Why am I? Oh.
Yeah, especially like to have this sort of existential crisis when you're holding the data card that has him living his life out in it.
I know.
You're just like, are we in someone's hand right
now? I know.
So good.
So much fun.
So fun. Yeah, I love it. Very great. So yeah, very fun episode. I love Moriarty. I feel like this was a good sort of send off for the character,
Yeah.
But yeah, holodeck episodes are fun anyway, but I love the ones where it's like, oh, we've gone too far.
Mm-hmm. Well, there were like these beats throughout where he was like, I need the command codes to the thing. And I was like, well, that escalated quickly. And then like a few moments later, like he takes command of the or something else happens. I was like, well, that escalated quickly again.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. It's so funny. And then I love the fact that they just program the holodeck to encapsulate him. So when he's talking to Riker, he's talking to a hologram Riker.
Totally, yeah. In the moment when you realize that the Geordi character is the holodeck character, and Picard's like, who's real? Yeah. Data's like, you and I, and Barclay's her.
And that's it. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay.
Well, that was clever.
So fun.
That's awesome. I love it. Okay, so carrying on from that one, Acquiel. This is the one where they go to a space station that's on the border with Klingon space, and there are 2 crew members who are supposed to be there. It's now abandoned. They have a ton of subspace messages. Your face right now is the face I was making last night when I was like, I swear there's still one more episode I need to watch, but this is Tapestry. I'm like, what episode am I? Oh, yeah, Acquiel. It went into and out of my brain so fast. I mean, bless it. It's fine, but it was very much just like, all right. And
it's like kind of an episode that's just there.
Yeah. It's a kind of interesting premise. They find like what seem to be the remains of was it Rocha, this lieutenant, and then Unari is this other sort of junior lieutenant who was stationed with him, that they find her logs and her dog. And Geordi goes through all of her personal logs and is like, oh yeah, I really like her. I'm falling in love with a imaginary person again that I'm building up in my mind. And then
poor Geordi.
I know. Then they extract the sort of remains. There's some Klingon stuff. They find it's like some duplicate thing that's going on, and it's basically like this changeling replicant type, like who is really themselves, and it's essentially just a species came in and replicate, like Invasion of Body Snatchers style. But people
also kind of it wasn't that exciting. Right. But by the end I couldn't understand if she was actually real, or I was like, so who is the alien? Is the alien the dog? Is the alien the Klingon? Is the alien her? Like, I don't, but you also don't really care.
Right. That's
and the thing is, like,
summary. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, the dog did not pull a parent trap when he saw her, so I felt like she was real. The dog wasn't like, she doesn't smell like my human,
But then the dog wasn't real, so
Yeah, but then they were saying it was like one alien, but it seemed like the alien was multiple people.
Yeah. Yep. Oh man. Yeah, it was an episode. But it's okay.
That is an accurate description.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably for most people who are watching, like, yeah, it comes in, it goes out, we're good. I just, they try, I think it's just, I get the sense a few times, especially in this season, which is a solid season, right? Like, we've been enjoying most of these episodes here, but I feel like they are really building Deanna Troy's character in terms of her taking leadership and wanting to be more Starfleet style. They've built a ton of Worf's character over the last season, end of season 5 into season 6.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they know what to do with Geordi. And I think that this is kind of indicative of that we've established that he's a great friend, and that he is sort of, we saw with Relics and how he treats Data and all of that. It's interesting to I feel like they are trying to build more of Geordi's character, but it's happened so many times with him that it's kind of funny more than anything.
I think it's an interesting point. You're right. He hasn't gone super beyond the wicked smart solution, problem solving, and friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another viewer asked, "Is it good?"
No.
This is the episode Acquiel. I would not sit through it again. I think it's not bad. I'm not offended by it, but I think it's just, it's not very gripping. There's not very high stakes. It's just kind of bizarre. So let's move on then. The Face of the Enemy. This is the one where Deanna Troi wakes up and, oh, no, you're good. No worries. This is, DS9's the way to go. And Samantha hasn't seen DS9 yet, so that's what we're excited about. She's watching these for the first time. But this is the one where Deanna Troi wakes up as a Romulan. Woo woo. And is trying to figure out what's going on. So, what did you think about this?
Well, I mean, at first I thought this was I think they're called the mirror episodes, where they all are evil or something. At first I was like, maybe this is one of those, because I haven't seen one of those yet and I really want to.
You haven't seen a Mirror Universe episode?
I don't think. I'm pretty sure maybe in the very beginning of Enterprise, or TNG, maybe. I'm forgetting. But anyway.
I think you might be right, actually.
Really?
That's weird. Yeah. Because there's no Mirror Universe Voyagers.
There is a Mirror Universe Voyager, though, I think. There's something similar.
There was something similar, but that was the one where they were stuck in the museum. Where there was the museum retconned their history to Voyager was the evil crew, but that's the closest that they got to a Mirror Universe.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna look this up real quick.
Do it. So I thought that might be what I was watching, but then I was like, oh my god, she is a Romulan. What is going on? A bit like her. Right. I am a Romulan. What is going on? But it was I'm constantly impressed by the Starfleet crew's ability to improvise with a lot of knowledge, and the stakes are life and death improvisation. But she really takes it on, and she does a spectacular job. I thought it was really fun to watch her.
She does. I agree. I think there are no Mirror Universe TNG episodes.
Oh my god!
Weird.
So I haven't seen one yet.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Looking forward to that when it comes.
No, because even the Tasha one, that was a different timeline. That wasn't the Mirror episode. That was just a different timeline. So, there's the Discovery. Well, you've seen Discovery though. So there's the whole stuff with season 1 in Discovery. But even that, it's not so much we're visiting. It was just who's good and who's evil type thing from this other dimension. But Anyway, I'm glad you really liked Deanna Troy in this. I think that this is a very good cat and mouse type thing.
Yeah.
And it's not, like, we've seen sort of similar storylines in Star Trek before, where, you know, remember we had the one where in Voyager where B'Elanna Torres, like, got split into her Klingon hat, you know, so it's like she wakes up full Klingon versus full human. And then there are some Deep Space Nine episodes that are like this as well, but they all handle it very differently. And am I missing one that maybe?
Well, there's one in TNG where Picard and somebody else are disguised and they go down.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh geez, what did
they meet? The kid, the spy, the kid I'm determined is evil.
No, I remember. I don't remember that. I don't remember what species they were, but yeah, I think that they do a great. This is a sort of different one where it's like she's not really questioning her reality. It's very much just like, oh no, you're here to be a spy. I kidnapped you. I need your help. You gotta convince this, you know, commander that that this cargo needs to be delivered to the Federation, essentially. And yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, it's got to be like a weird like editing thing or time thing, but like literally no one on the Enterprise was like, where's Deanna? Like she's gone for days.
Well, they did mention that she was at least at the beginning of the episode, she was on her way back from a conference.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
She was like, oh, last thing I remember, I was like on a shuttle, either on my way to or on my way from this. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
The good use of science conferences. They get away with those a lot.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Right.
I do feel like, because that was kind of with Worf too. Remember in Parallels where, you know, all that stuff started going weird? I don't know if you've seen. Yeah, I think so. But it's like, oh, he's on his way back from this thing, you know?
Right.
So I love that. But yeah, so she was on her way back from or to this conference, so they weren't necessarily missing her. And they did, I mean, it was kind of funny when she shows up on the view screen, and I'm like, trying to see all their faces, and they did a pretty convincing job of like, okay, I think we just need to play along here.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I love that moment. And then she like just plays it so cool, and it was like, I'm gonna send them a signal, I'm gonna send them a code here, they're gonna understand. She just trusts that, and she has to play her part, and then it does, like at the very end, like, you know, she manages, I couldn't figure out how they figured this out, but they managed to get the transporter lock on the cargo, not her.
Right.
I guess because he tells Worf, keep the lock on her, but don't do anything. And then they get her out at the last second. It was just brilliant.
It was really cool. It was just like, okay, we have to get our shields up so we can cloak. And then they got her out. I will say that guy that's on the ship with them, on the Enterprise, what was he again? What was his name? I don't remember. He had like the blonde hair and the Romulan haircut.
Oh God, he was weird. What's up with that?
I feel bad for that actor, cause like he was kind of like trying to inform them what was going on, but his hair was cut like a Vulcan, but he didn't have Vulcan ears, and his costume did not fit. It was not flattering at all. I felt so bad for this guy. I felt like they just phoned in his character.
Yeah, I guess he was part of Spock's thing.
Yeah, because he was saying, we're trying to get this for Spock, and then it wasn't actually him. Yeah, bizarre. I'm just
super
looking
bizarre
this up right now. Yeah. It was just weird. Yeah, so DeSeve was a defector. That was his name. And he's the one that's saying they need to go pick up this cargo. So he's like on the other side of the thing. But yeah, he only had his hair cut like a Romulan. He didn't have any other Romulan features, which maybe I just missed. Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, no, a human who defected to the Romulan Empire and then came back. I feel like they phoned in his character. They were like,
because that's like an interesting kind of serious backstory that you think they might want to check into, like all these Starfleet defectors to Romulus, like,
yeah.
And then Picard's just basically like, okay, we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, and then he's just there, and I feel like they were very much
You're
like,
here.
We don't have the makeup budget to turn you into a Romulan, so you're going to be a human defector. Like, I don't know. Okay. It was just crazy. And I don't know. I was just hung up on his outfit. It just was not flat. I felt bad for the guy. I felt, sucked. Anyway, I'm not trying to be mean. It was
much sympathy. Yeah.
Yeah, much sympathy. It just kind of felt a little phoned in. Because, like you said, it could have been a really interesting plot, to have a human defector, what his backstory is, but it's more just, is he telling the truth? Is he not? How does Spock fit into all this? And yeah, it was bizarre.
Very.
So weird. But yeah, Deanna Troi is awesome. The Romulan uniforms just always crack me up. They are just a Joanne's quilted fabric sale that, like, they're so bulky, and it's like, I know that fabric.
Right.
And their holsters were just the most awkward, like, things.
They're so open, like, people can just, like, reach in and grab someone else's gun.
Yeah, it just cracked me
and
up.
The shoulder pads, I mean, hello 80s.
I know. So brilliant. Yeah, it's pretty good. But as we said, all that aside, the story's good. I feel like the stakes are very high in this one, that you are kind of trying to figure it out. It doesn't have like the as gripping as it could, but Deanna Troi does a great job, and it was kind of cool to see her in that role, and she comes out of it kind of not, super messed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, speaking of, we kind of didn't mention this before, but I think the chain of command fallout was another thing that we've talked about this before with TNG episodes, where like the characters go through some serious trauma, and then the next episode it's like, we're back at work.
Yeah, actually, I was meaning to mention that too. Like, I've been noticing that where they kind of, they're fine in the next episode, and maybe there's like passage of time that we're not super aware of, like maybe a couple weeks have passed or something, but still Picard, like I thought about this a couple times with these episodes, was like the flute, like that was clearly a experience that affected him deeply, but he, like, I was like, does he think about that often? I mean, clearly he does, because he plays the flute a little bit, but not it. It's like every episode they kind of reset a little bit,
Which,
and just
I mean, and it might just be that they've put him through too much, that to try to write it all in, it would be a little untenable, because you'd have to deal with, because they do address his Locutus of Borg stuff.
Yeah.
But that keeps coming back, and then like you said, the flute comes back a little bit, but like this massive torture gaslighting thing never really comes back. And I think like with Deanna, this is sort of watching her evolution to try to become more part of Starfleet, to actually be a full-fledged.
Yeah, and I noticed that she didn't go back to her old costume. She keeps the Starfleet costume on. Yeah,
that Jellicoe made her wear.
Jellicoe. It's just hard to say.
But yeah, I mean, I do think that was something that stuck, that they she started wearing the Starfleet uniform, and she's already kind of been taking those steps in that direction, so it's just kind of more of that evolution, so it's kind of cool. All right, the last episode we're going to talk about, if you didn't catch us at the beginning, we are going to have to end 15 minutes early because I have to do this connected con, which should be fun. And I'll post a link when we say farewell. But so this is the next episode is Tapestry. This is the one where Picard gets a serious chest wound from an away mission.
Just a flesh wound.
Yeah, and he's basically dying, and then Q shows up, and this is oddly a Q episode that doesn't have a Q pun in the title. and basically makes him go back and revisit parts in his life that, you know, were influential, driven by this idea that his artificial heart is failing, you know, and so, well, what's the story of where it came from? And we go back and see him as a junior ensign in Starfleet. And it turns out that he had gotten into a fight with the Nausicaans, and got stabbed. And so reliving those points, and he is who he is now, going back and interacting with people. I think that this is one of those classic episodes that people talk about and remember. So I was curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah. He was Voldemort. Yeah. Well, basically, when I saw Q show up, I was like, this is way too soon after the last Q episode for us to deal with him again. Why is he here?
You didn't want to hear me have to have those conversations again. But yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but no, this was good. I mean, I love these episodes and storylines in Star Trek and other shows that you know, really address the idea of who we become, who we are at this age and stage of our life is, you know, all based on decisions we've made, whether we regret them or not, whether we like who we were then or not. All of that informs who we are today, and you need to think of it like you can't change that. And I think that concept is always a fun one to look into. And it was interesting to see, you know, Picard's part of that, how he came to be who he was, especially with his heart and everything. And the fact that, you know, Q kind of manipulates him into trying to change that.
Yeah.
And like, you wouldn't have died today if you, or something like, anyway, he's like tries to manipulate him to not have this sword fight so that he would still have his heart. And by doing that, he becomes a person that he doesn't recognize. So that moment needed to happen. And I mean, it was interesting, fun to watch.
Yeah, and I like those stories too, where because we talk about these a lot with different time travel episodes, where small changes have massive rippling effects in the timeline and the future. So you think you might just be changing something that's inconsequential, and then that actually has a massive change. But this is a much clearer sort of personal investigation of that, where it's like, all right, let's imagine that you didn't get stabbed and you passed by that. Oh, thank you. But you know, but that still changes the person you become. And you are, I'm not articulating it as well as I would hope. but yeah, that you know, that it's not so much of like it's influenced the entire timeline, like, of history, but what it has done is it's influenced who you became as a person. And it is interesting too to think about, like, the fact that Picard goes back in time, is with his friends, and I do like the fact that they didn't recast Picard here, that we got to see Jean-Luc, like, you know, we assume that they're seeing him as a young Jean-Luc, but we're seeing our Picard in this environment behave how he would, and then realizing that he's no longer that person anymore, and part of that is because he, you know, got stabbed, and that made him reevaluate how he approached his life.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's interesting. Yeah, it's really good.
It was a good one.
I think that there is sort of a weird message in it, though. Like, I think the only part that kind of makes me with it is how violently Picard rejects this idea of being a nobody. That he's just like, I'd rather die as a captain than be that wimp over there. Like, and I'm like, dude, like, that's a little harsh for, you know, all the people you work with and all of the different, you know, for how open-minded we know Picard is. He's pretty brutally rejecting of that, you know, that nobody that he became.
I definitely had the same response there, and it was a little bit like, really, you had to do that. But I sort of took it as the person he was seeing was so not who he felt he was at his core, and he's a leader, and but at the same time there was a little bit of that was off-putting.
Yeah. And I think too that the fact that he personally felt I guess that message is a little bit toned down in the sense that it is just his perspective. Like you said, that it's when he's looking at it, it's like, that's not the person I want to be and that I worked hard to become. Then that kind of tones down that negativity a little bit, where you're just like, I guess we're harsher critics of ourselves than we are about other people. I guess that
that's
makes me feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, I was just like, ooh, die as a captain, then live as a nobody. I'm like, jeez, man.
Well, yeah, exactly, because it's almost saying like the people who are supporting this entire ship are nobodies.
Yeah.
That was weird. I didn't like that.
Of course, I probably had my wrinkles up a little bit because his nobody was a junior astrophysics officer. So I was like, this astrophysicist is a little hurt by that. But yeah, it's interesting, and it is a good episode, and I think that I like that story. I like this introduction that he has an artificial heart because he was stabbed, and the fact that the stabbing not only sort of changed his personality, but did make him less risk averse. You know, not saying that people should go out and get stabbed to take risks in life, but that was an influential event for him. So
exactly, yeah.
Very,
very cool Picard character development. Story.
We like character development.
We liked.
Awesome. All right. So on that, all right. Let me see if that worked. I think we're probably gonna have to end it here, if that works for you. Let me see. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. I am gonna be taking a 15-minute break. I'll do a costume change, and I will be back. I'm posting the link up in the chat right now. This is the Science Division Connected Convention, where it's basically a big virtual tables. If you've been to a sci-fi convention before, this is your booth room, your vendor's room. So there's a bunch of people signed up who have tables, who are selling things, who are here for conversations. There's a lot of great people doing it. You can probably head over there now and check out Alexander Siddig is giving the introduction, who played Julian Bashir in Deep Space Nine. I will be up starting in 15 minutes. I'll be there for about 3 hours, so you're able to come. It's a combination, all of the things. Basically a sci-fi convention, vendor's room. So check out that link. You can sign up. It's free. And then you can find out where everyone is hanging out and come say hi. So anyway, on that, thank you, Samantha, for hanging out this morning. We got through those. Excellent, Todd.
And we'll be back next Sunday.
We will indeed. Probably another 6 episodes. So with that,
all right.
Live long and prosper. All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.